I don't want to waste your time, so there won't be an intro. Since the next season of NA Pro League will be run by Faceit now, we've had some changes to the league format. Instead of the old round-robin format where everyone played everyone else, we're now back to GSL groups, meaning that the league will be split into two groups, who then kind of play a mini-tournament with a loser bracket to determine the top two teams. And here, something a bit controversial happened. Group B consists of TSM, Dark Zero, Sonics, and Tempostorm. And Tempostorm were the ones who were allowed to pick the opponent that they wanted to play against. And understandably, people were quite confused when Tempostorm decided to play against TSM instead of, for example, Sonics. Especially looking back at their most recent match where they got 7-0'd by TSM. And that decision brought them quite a bit of criticism. But of course there were also those who brought up arguments for why picking TSM first is actually smart. So let's examine a few of those and see if there's some merit to them. First up are all the mathematical arguments that kind of make the case that playing the strongest team first is good because it gets them out of the way, and that it is favorable to play the weaker teams later on in the group stage, for example in the loser bracket elimination match. But since these arguments are based on math and logic, we can just check if they are true. And in order to do that, I wrote a small script that simulates this group being played out 1 million times. And then we can check in how many of those times Tempostorm managed to qualify, depending on which team they played first. Obviously, this approach relies on assumptions, but these assumptions are not very controversial, I think. TSM is the best team, with a 60% win rate against both Tempostorm and Sonics, and a 55% win rate against Dark Zero. Dark Zero is the second best team, so they have a 45% win rate against TSM and a 55% win rate against both Tempostorm and Sonics. At last, Sonics and Tempostorm kind of share third and fourth, and both have a 40% win rate against TSM, a 45% win rate against Dark Zero, and a 50% win rate against each other. Obviously, those numbers are made up, but you're going to see that the actual numbers don't really matter too much as long as they don't change halfway through the simulation. Okay, so what are the results? With Tempostorm playing TSM first, their chances of making it to playoffs are 40.6%, with Sonics being slightly higher at 42.5%, and then DZ with 53 and TSM with 63. And now comes a crucial moment. If Tempostorm decided to play Sonics first, then TSM would have 61%, DZ would have 50%, Sonics would have 44%, and Tempostorm would have 44% too. So, as you can see, by deciding to play TSM first, Tempostorm decreased their overall chances of making top 2. And that shows that every argument that either implicitly or explicitly assumes only one win rate per matchup does not hold up. But that leads me to the next argument, the improvement argument. Some people are saying that by voluntarily taking the L against TSM in the first game, Tempostorm get extra time to improve and prepare against Sonics and Dark Zero. But you can make exactly the same argument for Sonics and Dark Zero too, right? The loser of that game also gets time to prepare against Tempostorm, and I honestly don't see why you would assume that Tempo somehow made significantly more improvements than Sonics or Dark Zero would. So, in my opinion, this argument isn't very convincing either. And a lot of the arguments that I've read online can be boiled down to either the mathematical argument or the improvement argument. But there is actually another kind of argument which concerns the assumptions we made for the mathematical argument. We said that Tempostorm has a 40% chance to win against TSM, a 45% chance against DZ, and a 50% chance against Sonics. These numbers are chosen from an outside perspective, but Tempo has the inside perspective. Maybe they're actually beating TSM in scrims right now. And if we adjust the win rates of the simulation accordingly, by giving Tempo a 55% chance to win against TSM, all of a sudden it's actually optimal for them to pick TSM first. And I think that this idea is by far the best argument here. Especially when we consider this tweet by Merck, who alludes to the fact that Tempo has been beating TSM in scrims, and this Reddit post by Tempostorm's coach Kens, who said that with the addition of Sloppy, TSM was the best fit for them stylistically. Now, whether that truly was the correct move remains to be seen. I think basing a decision like that off of scrim results is always a bit risky, because if scrim results truly reflected the power level of a team, the Invitational would have been won by some random T3 underage gunner squad, and not by SSG. Nevertheless, the idea of Crazy and Super potentially meeting in a lower bracket elimination match does sound pretty entertaining, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. To conclude, picking TSM is not necessarily a mistake, but at the same time, a lot of the arguments I've seen that support this decision are pretty unconvincing or just flat out wrong. Because the only convincing argument you can make relies on having inside information on scrims, which most people probably don't have, me included. So if you forced me to make a decision, then I'd have to say that picking TSM was a mistake. Alright, that's it for the video. But if you're watching this within the first few hours after release, then you can catch me live on Twitch right now, where I'm probably reviewing some Pro League games. Link is in the description. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video, I hope you learned something new, and thanks for watching.